Okay, this is going to be the warm-up for the review before the Unit 3, Topic 1, Part 2 quest on graphing trig functions. There are 3 problems in your packet right before the unit review. Go ahead and pause the video and work on these. Okay, so at this point, you should have paused the video. And let's remember, before we write number 1, that our general format is A, and then sine or cosine, B, x minus c plus d. A is the amplitude. It's found by taking the maximum minus the minimum and dividing by 2. B is our value we use to change the period. It's equal to 2 pi divided by the new period. C is the phase shift. We find that value if we're writing this as a positive cosine by finding the top point, a negative cosine by finding the bottom point, a positive sine by finding center going up point, and negative sine by finding the center going down point. And then D is our midline, and we find the midline similar to the amplitude, but we're going to add max plus min over 2. So let's take a look at number 1. I noticed that on the y-axis right here, we're at a minimum. So I'm going to write this as a negative cosine, and I'm not going to need a phase shift because on the y-axis, it's that perfect point. So no C. Now I see I have a minimum here at -3 and I have a maximum at 5. So if I calculate the amplitude by subtracting them, I get 8 divided by 2, and I get an amplitude of 4. The midline, 8, 5 plus -3 is 2. Divided by 2 is 1, and you can dot that in, and you can see it's right there in the middle. So the easiest way to write this equation would be y equals -4, because we're writing it as a negative cosine. Oh, we didn't do the period. Okay, hold on, pause. So here, let's see, where does it stop? Oh, it stops here at 2. So B is going to be 2 pi divided by 2, which is the period. So this is going to be pi x plus 1. That would be the easiest way to write this. Now, some people might also write it as a positive cosine using this maximum, and that would be okay. I don't know that anyone would write it as a sine. I mean, you could. You could write it y equals 4 sine pi x minus a half plus 1, but I'm guessing that's not going to be a popular option. I'm guessing most of you are going to go with the first 2. So number 2 is asking us to write in phase shift format, the format we just wrote for number 1. So I noticed that the 2 is not outside, so I'm going to need to factor it out and put it outside the parentheses. So that's going to give me x plus pi over 2. So now I'm in proper format. Okay, so A is -2. B is 2, C is negative pi over 2. Remember, it's x minus c, and D is 5, x minus c. Now, the amplitude, whoops, the amplitude is not -2. The negative tells us that this is a reflected cosine. The amplitude is just 2. The period is 2 pi over b, so that's going to be pi. The phase shift is left pi over 2, and the vertical shift is up 5. Number 3, Sarah's right. Oh, this is a very similar question as we did yesterday, but the numbers are a little different. So let's take a look. Pause the video if you haven't tried this, and go ahead and sketch your graph. So again, we happen to be 6, and then another 6 makes 12. And that means if there's 6 units here, that means she must have started here also. Again, I'm told in the problem that after 6 seconds, she's up here at 120, and then after another 6 seconds, she's down at 20, which means if we backed up to 0, she'd be at that same point. And it appears we have another, I totally missed, but that's okay. The sketch is just to help me, negative cosine. So A is going to be 120 minus 20. B, well, I need the period. So the period here is going to be 12. So 2 pi divided by 12 becomes pi over 6. C, I'm not going to need a C because I'm going to write this as a negative cosine. So that's going to, I'm not going to need a C value. D, let's see, midline is going to be 120 plus 20 divided by 2, which is 140. So this is going to be 70. So my equation, if I write it as a negative cosine, will be y equals negative 50 cosine pi over 6x plus 70. Now, this is the equation I'm going to use for the below, but if you wrote it like this, I think this is probably the second most popular, to write it as a positive cosine with a phase shift right 6. So at this point now, we are going to need to grab our Desmos calculators. I'm going to use Desmos here. You can use your TI if you like. And I'm going to use the scientific calculator for letter C, because all I need to do for letter C is plug in negative 50. Miss Weiss made a video from last week where she used the table to evaluate, but I don't like that. I don't know why. So this is what I need to evaluate. So I'm going to grab my calculator, my scientific calculator loaded up here, and I want to make sure I'm in radian mode. So you see how I switched it to radian, and I'm going to go negative 50 cosine pi. Now I'm going to put this in parentheses. If you just type pi divided by 6, and I want to make sure I move over a little bit, times 11 plus 70, and 26.699 if I'm rounding to 3 decimal places. And I believe this is feet. Feet, let's check the units. Feet, okay, excellent. So the second question that I'm going to use Desmos for is determine the first 2 times when Sarah's height is 90 feet. So I'm going to need to set up 2 equations in my calculator. I'm going to type in the one that I wrote, and then I'm going to put in the second equation, y equals 90. So I'm going to pop open now my Desmos graphing calculator. Put this over here a little bit so I can see. Oh, that works. And I've got y equals negative 50 cosine pi over 6, arrow out x, arrow out plus 70, and then y equals 90. Now you'll notice I don't see anything on my graph. I need to move it. I need to find these points, and if I use my wheel on my mouse, I can scroll out pretty quick. Oh, and there we go. I'm looking really, see where the blue line crosses the cosine function? That's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to slide in there, and I can see the 90, and I'm looking for these 2 points. And this is what is so great about Desmos. If I just click and make sure you get the black ones there and there. So my answers are going to be 3.786 seconds. And I missed the other one. 8.214 seconds. Okay. So just some announcements. Please remember, we have our quest on Thursday, Friday, depending on what class you're in. There is no homework to submit today. As a reminder, this module will lock on the 24th. Please make sure you submit any missing work before the 24th or before midnight on the 24th. Make sure you come to class Thursday, Friday on time. I don't think there's anything under there. At this point, you are just going to work. The next page in your packet is the review, And the video is in the module. If you need to go over that, I will also probably send it to you on Remind. So at this point, I'm going to stop the recording and you are going to go work on all these review pages. See? The whole thing, all the way to here.